Welcome to the Ottawa Business Journal's live broadcast of how small businesses are reducing benefit costs without cutting coverage. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. Thanks for joining us today. Great to have you with us. This is the second live broadcast we've done with CAA. You can check out OBJ's YouTube channel to find the last one. Listen, business owners and managers are facing real headwinds these days. With constant uncertainty and disruption, it's not easy to operate a small business. And that's particularly true when it comes to controlling costs. Prices are on the rise, increasing at incredible rates. On the human resource side, there are also some challenges. How do we recruit and retain staff? And how do we create an attractive and competitive total compensation package? Part of the solution on the HR side, in my opinion, involves employee benefits, medical insurance, dental vision, disability insurance, so on and so forth. All of these can be important elements in a benefits package. But here's the question. But once that benefit program is launched, how do small business owners and managers protect themselves against giant double-digit cost increases? That's what we're talking about here today. More specifically, why small businesses overpay for benefits, plan design tweaks that reduce costs without cutting the coverage, that's a key point, and why modern benefit platforms can reduce cost over time. We've got two experts to guide us through today's discussion. First up, we've got from CAA North and East Ontario, the Managing Director of Insurance. Here comes Jarrett Thompson. Hey, Jarrett.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, it's great. And you've got a partner in crime here. For the second time, joining us is Sterling Brokers CEO. Here comes Andrew Blanchard. Andrew, should I say Blanchard or Blanchard?
I mean, it depends how many French people are tuning in here, okay. But either way works.
I'll just call you Andrew.
Okay. So thanks for good to see you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here. And Jarrett, maybe we'll get to know you a little bit more. So tell us about your role, Jarrett, at CAA. What do you do there?
Yeah, so I'm the Managing Director for Insurance Products here at CAA North and East Ontario, which means I'm maybe not the most exciting person to talk to about what I do for a living at a cocktail party, but we'll get through that. It was interesting. About 18 months ago, Jeff Walker, the CEO for CAA North and East, was talking, and we're trying to figure out, we're getting all of these questions from people about how can we help them in their businesses, because we do it on the membership side with our regular consumers. Everybody knows somebody who has a CAA membership. And so we started to look at it, and there was a couple of key things we wanted to do. Obviously, I'm in the insurance space, and we knew that, as you had said, Michael, benefits for small business owners are probably the second biggest cost associated with their employees. And it's something that they don't really know very much about. One of the things that we are very, very careful with is our brand. CAA is one of the most respected brands in Canada. And so picking our partner was incredibly important to us. And we did a lot of research, took a lot of time. And finally, we landed on Andrew Blanchard from Sterling. And it's been great so far. And, let him maybe introduce himself a little bit now.
Jarrett, I would love to talk to you at a cocktail party. So next time we bump into each other, I'm glued to your arm there. Over to you, Andrew. The second time you're with us, as indicated, and you got a big endorsement there from a big brand, CAA. I agree. But tell us a little bit more about Sterling Brokers.
Yeah, Michael, thanks again for having me back, and great to chat with your audience. So, I'm Andrew. I'm the chief executive here at Sterling. So, Sterling is, I am based in Ottawa, but we are a national firm. And, Sterling, we kind of refer to ourselves as a benefits distribution and management platform. So we are an employee benefits broker. We serve a little over 3,000 clients from coast to coast, servicing our clients in English and French. But we are also a technology platform. And really, those two offerings, we'll talk more about it today, we believe allows us to provide a really interesting level of value and service, especially into the small and mid-sized business segment, where sometimes we feel like those clients are being underserved, especially in the insurance space. We're excited to talk about it today, and also give some of your listeners and viewers maybe some insights that we've seen around, benefit cost and administration.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in business for a while, and I think part of what we're trying to talk about here today is the selection of that benefits package, the design of the program, and the renewal process, where quite often as a business owner or manager, you're faced with these double-digit increases, and you're like, oh my God, well, like, what is going on? We implemented this benefits program so we could really, reward our employees and have great retention, and then it's like, just shock, and sometimes you feel a little stuck, right? Like, what did we get ourselves into? But anyway, let me set that up today's show a little bit, Andrew and Jarrett. We've divided it into 3 topics to make it really kind of digestible for our audience. Topic number 1 is why small businesses overpay for benefits coverage. Topic number 2, plan tweaks that reduce costs without cutting coverage, because that can be a temptation, right? The costs go up, you cut coverage to hold on to things. Topic number 3, why modern benefits platforms reduce cost over time. A reminder for our live viewers, if you're on YouTube or you're on LinkedIn, you can ask questions to Andrew and Jarrett. We'll be taking those questions sometime around 12:25. And we're trying something new here today, being a little bit more interactive. We're going to pop some polls up on the screen, and we'd love to get your perspective on them. When the polls do come on screen, you can simply comment the number that was selected. So if you want, if you want to pick number 2, you just in the chat function just go number 2, and then we'll take a look at where we're at. But anyway, let's get right down to topic number 1, which again is why small businesses overpay for benefits. I'm going to throw this one at you, Andrew. You get 2 companies, pretty well the same benefits package, and they end up paying dramatically different premiums. Explain that to us. How does that happen, Andrew?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just start this with, look, we are an advisor. Our shop employs many trusted advisors and licensed brokers, from coast to coast. And, in front of everything I'm going to say, like, it is, my personal view, like, find a licensed, trusted advisor that has your best interest and the best interest of, your employees when you're starting to make some of these decisions. I think, look, your benefit price is going to come down to really 3 core things. Firstly, it's what you're buying, which we refer to as plan design. Secondly, it's the experience. So if you're on an experience plan, we'll talk a little bit about that today, but if the utilization or how much your employees are using that plan will factor into the go forward pricing. And then the third is your target loss ratio, which is essentially a measure of how many pennies for every dollar is actually going into your policy versus going into administration, to the carrier, to your broker, et cetera. So, Michael, to directly answer your question, there's a couple of factors that can influence 2, very similar plan designs in similar companies with, assuming similar demographics inside those companies to have different, different outputs and or different, overall premium costs. And one of them is experience. So obviously how much of the plan they're using, if there are high cost drugs, if paramedical usage is high, those tend to be the real big drivers, right? Is going to be parameds and drug usage. And then secondly is TLR. So TLR, I'll talk a little bit about, is when you're a small business, in Canada, sometimes we still think a little too small. But generally the carrier marketplace is going to see you as higher risk because it's just lower number of lives. Sometimes it's more challenging to get, high quality plan designs. But secondly, your TLR will tend to be low. So there's, some tools that an advisor or ourselves can help you with, but taking advantage of essentially wholesale buying through pooling arrangements or through being part of a multi-employer group or an association plan can allow you to essentially elevate your target loss ratio, and therefore more dollars out of every single one of, out of the dollars you're putting into your policy are going to your employees, versus going to the administration and the expense of the plan. And that's something, as a small business, it's challenging sometimes to get access to those plans. As a standalone business, if you're going through, an advisor, a broker, or direct with a carrier, oftentimes those TLRs will be, in the low 70s. So 30% of the cost is actually going to administration and expense. So really understanding the target loss ratio and some of the mechanisms that you can use as a buyer to get that number closer into the 80s and capture that 10% of savings and hopefully put that back into your into your plan.
Okay. Jarrett, we'll go to you in a second, but I just want to ask Andrew a follow-up question just to make sure, that the great points you made are resonating with people. So I think as a small business, let's say you have 5, 10 employees, you can be at a little bit of a disadvantage. And what you're saying is you really need to have professional advice to make sure that you're in a larger pool to protect you and get the best program design. Did I say that?
Yeah,
right?
like that can be a helpful strategy, right? So
Yeah.
And there's a couple ways to do that. There's association plans that exist. Now there's, what we refer to, I'm going to be a bit of a benefits nerd, but we refer to some of the things that happen inside association plans as anti-selection or negative selection, where the high users tend to stay. And in an association plan, essentially, Michael, everybody's going to pay the same rate. Jarrett and I are different companies and we might have different utilization. One of the strategies that we employ at Sterling, and other brokers, can employ it as well, is a multi-employer strategy. So you're still accountable for your own utilization as the employer. However, you're taking advantage of at scale buying, therefore getting that kind of wholesale pricing, if you will, to kind of put it in layman's terms.
Yeah, important to get that pro advice. And Jarrett, let's go to you. And maybe just start by talking about this scenario that I presented a minute ago, which is, you're a small business owner, 5 to 10 employees. You say, I need to do something for my employees. I need a better retention. Benefits can be part of that. So you launch a benefit program and then you come up for the renewal period. And now you feel stuck because you're saying, oh, wow, Mr. or Mrs. Client, your rate is going up by 25%. And you're like, oh, I didn't think as a small business owner. Small businesses, I guess the point, can feel stuck, right, Jarrett? So, what is CAA doing to try to help that?
Well, I think that's why we started our business membership and partnered with Andrew and his team at Sterling. The reasons that pricing is different is similar to when you're auto insurance. You can have two people living in the same street, driving the same red Honda Civic, and their rates are different because the underlying risk can be different. Andrew said a whole bunch of really good things, and I'm a pretty simple guy, so I have to make it simple for me. If you have 4 employees and you have 2 or 3 that have very high benefits costs in the year before, that can kill your plan. And what Andrew said with types of pooling and how they can look and really reassess where that risk goes can help level the playing field a little bit better. But really what you do need this goes through all of our lines of business for the insurance products that we sell, is that you need a trusted advisor who is going to go out and who is going to look for the best thing for you. And we're going to answer some of the questions that come up later in this conversation because they're all kind of fluid and they're all together. But when you take a look, first of all, you sign a plan, and it could be with somebody who hasn't done their due diligence to figure out who you are as an individual and what your business needs. And they give you a cookie cutter type of policy that works with most, but not all. And then you get a renewal that comes in. And as a small business owner, you're not an expert. This is not what you do. You are someone who is a plumber or an electrician, and that's your specialty. Andrew's team at Sterling is the specialist that can help navigate all of these different things. But what happens is you get your renewal and you just panic. You're like, it went up 10, 15%. I don't know much about this. I need benefits. That's how I keep my employees. So I'll just renew. And then over time, that starts, again, I go back to auto insurance. If you never have looked at anybody else other than the first person you had for auto insurance when you were 16, there can be some differences throughout time.
Yeah, I completely get that scenario. It's so true, Jarrett. And it's either just, okay, I have no choice, so let's just renew, or, holy cow, you're looking for an 18% increase. I guess my drug coverage is going down. I guess my dental coverage is going down. And then think about what that is. How does a small business owner go back to his trades company, let's say, use that example, and go, sorry, guys, I just reduced your prescription coverage from 90 to 70, and this is going down. And sorry, you're going to have to pay more for your kids' dental employments. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Andrew, and know you're an expert in all this, is one of the reasons we're seeing these big increases, as I understand it, is this kind of new generation of prescription drugs. So again, you have a small company, 5 to 10 people. Someone gets sick and needs one of these drugs, right, Andrew? Like, these drugs are worth hundreds, thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, drug costs continue to be elevated. And I mean, there's good and bad, right? There's great progress that continues to happen in the healthcare industry, and new opportunities to treat disease. And I think we're blessed that we live in a time where there's lots of talented people working on new drugs across the spectrum of pharmaceuticals. And I think we're blessed as consumers. That being said, there can be a huge cost outlay. So some of the things, and again, not to be too technical, relying on your advisor to understand what you're on the hook for. So making sure that, like, do you have a drug formulary in your plan that is going to be, have some cost containment in it? And if, some of these things run away, is there a strategy to use the provincial healthcare and provincial drug formularies to be able to kind of deal with maybe some of the higher cost elements that come into, drug utilization? I also think there's caps you can put into a plan. So understanding what are the drug caps that you're going to, place into a plan. I mean, Michael, one of the things, it's always a really hard conversation with your employees when you're taking your benefit coverage down. So when you're putting a plan in place, understanding, hey, it's a lot easier to increase the value of that plan or the perceived value to your employees over time versus having that other kind of negative, conversation. So, being thoughtful design that you put in place and trying to run through with your advisor, what's the worst case scenario here? If the plan ends up, kind of running away on me, what am I really going to be facing? So plan design is, very important. Drugs, and then secondarily pharmaceuticals, secondarily is paramedical, usage. Those are the two real big drivers that we're seeing, that we are seeing today. So being thoughtful about drug formulary on your plan, understanding also industry pooling and asking that question to your advisor around, hey, at what level here am I actually individually on the hook? And when does industry pooling take over? And when does the carrier help me with some of these kind of one-off situations where I have a $250,000 a year burden to take care for one of my employees? So those are some of the questions that, we can help folks with, or your advisor, you should be having that conversation with your advisor.
Yeah. You're really underlining the importance of good advice. Gentlemen, we're going to move to our second topic here. And a reminder for our live audience, you can ask your questions on either YouTube or LinkedIn. Topic number 2, we had a perfect segue there, is plan tweaks that reduce costs without cutting the coverage. So Andrew, maybe we'll get your pro take on it, and then Jarrett will come back to you for a little bit of color on this. But why do you think, Andrew, some plan designs are outdated? So, why is it so important to make sure to get the design correct and to tweak it to provide kind of maximum coverage and some cost controls?
Yeah, I mean, outdated is an interesting term. I mean, I think for us, it's always trying to fit the plan to the demographic inside the organization. If you're a young software business with younger folks that are, mostly single and don't have families, are going to have very different consideration than if your average, age and family demographic is one that's maybe in their 40s or 50s, where there's more dependence, on the plan. And those things can drive the decisions that you're going to make. So, firstly is just understanding the census of your organization, and then what are people really going to see as the most, the highest perceived value. Oftentimes, we'll see really rich paramedicals in a plan because people really enjoy and like using massage and physio and all of the, great paramedical services. But sometimes those folks are underinsured when it comes to, drug coverage or disability. And when you have younger demographics, as an example, they tend to be less worried about, disability, or tend to be less worried potentially about, the true insurance of an employee benefits plan, whether that's drug or, drug, life, disability, short or long term. So I think oftentimes, especially in the small market, because, just to say it, for brokers and carriers, there's not a lot of profit to be made. They tend to kind of have a rinse and repeat, like, hey, this is the plan I used before. This is the plan that we'll use here. So, as the buyer, as the business owner, kind of understanding that your advisor is putting a plan together that's going to meet the needs of your business. And that's also, going to have some cost control, that if, the utilization runs away, like, you have caps in place, you have your risk termed out over a longer period, so that 12 months or 16 months into that initial plan, you're not facing a +20 or a +30, and then you're challenged to try to throttle back that plan design.
Yeah, Jarrett, let's bring you back into the conversation and take a look at it kind of from an employee point of view. What they really want is predictability. So they want to know that they're covered, if their kid gets sick or they need some sort of dental thing. What are some of the reasons you're working with Sterling from a benefit point of view, Jarrett?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, as you can hear from talking to Andrew, it's that expertise that most of our small business owners just do not have. And the plans end up being, and Andrew had mentioned this, but they end up being what we had before. So we're going to just keep going with the same type of thing. And if it was possibly the wrong thing, or any small business owner, their businesses change over time. They hire more employees, they get into different segments, different geographies, different demographics. And what you have to really become versed at is not just keeping the cost down, which obviously is super important, but making sure the benefits relate to what your workforce is looking for. There's different ways to do that with flex plans or all different types of things. And when you do that, you can maybe reduce cost, but maybe just be more efficient with where those costs are going to, so that the employee has a much higher perceived benefit. Andrew had an example of paramedical services, which is just, chiropractic, massage therapy. If that's something that's better for you and for your employees, well, maybe you can funnel more of the money into that. Now, you need somebody like Andrew to explain to you that you can't forget about some of the other things that can pop up. But I think what it really is just about having that good conversation and having somebody ask you the questions that you probably haven't been asked before about what you need for a benefits package for your specific business in your industry in whatever city you live.
Yeah, because it's really like a balancing act, right? And I love the point that you made there, Jarrett. You need someone, you don't know what you don't know. So you need to balance, your cost, affordability, and what the plan design coverage is, and you need someone to ask those questions. We're doing really good on time, gentlemen. We're going to keep on trucking here and go to topic number 3. And a reminder, we'll be going in about 5 or 6 minutes to our live audience. So if you got some questions, I see some over there already, please ask them. Topic number 3, just a reminder, is why modern benefit platforms reduce cost over time. This is something I don't know a lot about, Andrew. So tell me a little bit about this. Platforms, you're talking about a technology platform here?
Yeah, so and again, right, we all think we're, I guess, talking my own book a little bit, and we always think our own baby's the best looking. But for any of you listeners, viewers that are managing a benefits plan, it can be very manually intensive. And if you only have 3 or 4 employees, that's maybe not a big deal. But when you start to grow into the 20, 30, 40 employees, you're kind of managing data sets across a number of different systems. And you have to manage your data in your HR platform. And your HR platform may just be a spreadsheet for small businesses. You have your payroll solution, and those things can be integrated if you buy an integrated all-in-one platform. But typically in the small and mid-sized segment, a lot of folks are using 2 different solutions there. And then third, you have your benefits enrollment tool, and that's typically direct with the carrier. So there's examples where you're hiring, let's say we hire Michael, at my company. I need to know the benefit rules. I need to be able to log him into payroll, make sure he gets paid on day 1, but he doesn't qualify for benefits for 60 days. So then I'm going into the Manulife or Canada Life instance. I'm enrolling him. I then get his cost share information. I have to manually do my payroll deductions every 2 weeks or months, whatever your payroll frequency is. And managing all of these things, and then the taxable and non-taxable nature of different benefit lines, it can be a lot of work. Our system or other third-party administrators can help to solve some of that and abstract all of that work away. So, our third-party administration solution can connect your HR data, the carrier, and then your payroll data and perform the actual payroll deductions. And all of the benefit rules can be built into that third-party software so that you're only managing one data set. It's significantly reducing. And, typically what we see, it's hard to measure this, but we're seeing 15 to 18% of cost savings from an administration standpoint on the clients that work with us. And then you just have a lot of that work is not really value added, doesn't help you be a better business. So having that kind of integrated single source of truth across all of those disparate platforms is something that we believe adds a lot of value to clients.
Yeah, I've never thought of that, right? So I've been focused all these years on premiums, and you're saying there's an admin cost to administering the program already. Jarrett, bring it back to CAA. I presume that's why you're working with Sterling Partners, because You want your CAA members to have access to the best design at the best price value, and also to make sure that there are some controllable expenses there, right, Jarrett?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we want to make sure that people are clear on is Andrew's group at Sterling does such a good job, but we wanted to make sure that there was an application for our small to medium-sized business owners to be able to engage with this in an easy way. As Andrew said, it is a lot of spreadsheets, and this isn't the forte of the small business owner. And when you have this, we don't have a chance to bring it up. I wish we could, but his platform where someone can go on, they can manage it, they can enter the information, and as he said, the reduction. But we have seen times where they've been able to eliminate an entire headcount in their HR department because they don't need someone to work on this. So we can look at the costs, savings, and premiums, but the efficiency, the data collection, the information that's there that is then helpful the next time, Andrew and his team goes out to see which insurance company they should place the benefits with. They have all of this data that helps them make better decisions. And what we're really looking at is how do we make better decisions to get more value or less cost in a more efficient way. And when you do all of that, I have found in talking to small business owners that have went through this process, that's what they like. It's simpler, it's way more efficient, and they feel that they have the knowledge that they've done the right thing, but they can also see the data that proves that they made the right decision. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I like it. I firmly believe, and this is going to become even more important with things like AI. The platforms you choose can be a big determinant in the success of your business. Whether or not we're talking about benefits here or any platform. So kudos to you, Andrew at Sterling, for building a really effective platform. I'm sure it's helping in many ways. All right, gentlemen, we're going to take a look at some of the questions. So hang with me here. Sometimes we just throw people up on screen. So I want to say hi to Tanis. Tanis works for the Heart of Orleans BIA. That's doing a big push right now. And as you can see here, wow, looking forward to this discussion as their benefits will likely go up about 30% this year. That's exactly what we're talking about, right, gentlemen? My advice here would be give Jarrett a phone call. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. We have a bunch of people chiming in on the polls. Maybe, Andrew, general question to you, just about trends that we should keep our eyes open for how benefits packages, either from like a inclusions point of view. How are things, what should we be keeping our eyes open for in coming years here?
I know we don't have a ton of time, so this is a loaded, long question, but
okay.
I think, a big conversation we talk lots about currently is like GLP-1 use for weight loss.
Yes.
When are carriers going to accept them for the weight loss use case, versus diabetic treatment? And you have Health Canada now approving more and more of these GLP-1s in a weight loss, scenario. I think there was another last week that was approved, if I'm not mistaken. So that's coming. Okay. There's going to be incremental costs, but it's also, pretty interesting and incremental benefit. And like these drugs, the data is really, really very interesting, for a number of health outcomes. So that's a big discussion right now in our space. So maybe I'll leave it at that one to kind of keep eyes out for.
Super, super hot topic. Jarrett, we were just talking about the usability factor on the admin side. So for someone to administer one of these programs, I'll tell you what, another bugaboo here that's coming up is just on the employee side, like the ability to get those benefits into a platform and get them approved. I mean, there's been giant strides, I think, taken. I mean, I'm remembering back to when you had to upload every receipt and that type of stuff. Jarrett, again, maybe this is an opportunity for you to sing Andrew and Sterling's benefits here. But how are things looking from if I want to join up with CAA, get this benefits coverage from a user point of view, an employee point of view? What is that looking like?
Yeah. Don't you remember we used to have to fax things in at one point? Things have changed a lot. Yeah. I know that in order to try and make it as efficient as possible, we want to make it as simple as possible. And I know Andrew does that with the carriers that he works with his online portal that people can upload this information. It makes it much easier. I'm not going to try and explain how it works because that's his, but it is one of the things, because you can have a really good program, you can have good costs, but it's very difficult to use. You're going to start to get pushback from your employees. And that's the last thing that you want to do in a benefits program. Benefits programs are to make employees happy, to help with retention, and make sure that everything is good in the home. If you make that difficult, that doesn't do what you want it to do. So I'll let Andrew speak to how that happens in the platform, but it's a much simpler process.
And Andrew, it's probably a little bit of an unfair question because, I mean, you're in the broker seat. So I presume someone's still using, or am I wrong about this, like RBC or Manulife or Stan?
Yeah, so we're an open broker. We work with all the carriers across the country, and the way that we approach our business is we should be providing lots of different options to meet all of our different clients' needs, and different carriers have different idiosyncrasies and also have different seasons in which they're aggressive or not. So, we do work with all carriers across the sourcing the best product for our clients. Got it.
Okay, gentlemen, we're at full time here, but we're going to bring up a slide here and get you to speak to the slide here, Jarrett. As you teased off the top, this is a big change for CAA. So CAA Business Solutions was launched several months ago, and this slide kind of walks people through what you can access through CAA Business. But tell us more, Jarrett.
Well, as I had said, we had a number of our regular members who had asked us about, well, I have a small business. Is there anything for us? And we didn't. And we're one of the first clubs in Canada to come up with this small business membership. So we tried to realize what are the things that small business owners are most concerned with. And we're going to keep adding to this list as we continue to grow. But obviously group benefits, as we just talked through for the last half hour, so super, super important. We have employee memberships that are part of that. Commercial roadside, if you have a fleet and something happens to your vehicle, right now it's not covered under your traditional CAA membership or any real roadside membership. We'd have commercial pit crew, and that's where we can have roadside people come to your fleet and do oil changes or tire changes on site. You don't have to bring your vehicles. We'll come to you to do that, which helps with efficiency. And obviously it's pricing because you can do a whole bunch of vehicles at once. And then business insurance. We decided that insurance is a big talking point for people and trying to keep costs down. So we wanted to see if we could go out with our size and our buying power and find different insurers that would be able to give discounted rates on people's commercial insurance. And what I will say for all of this as kind of a last statement, I say this in every conversation I have because I get asked about cost a lot. I would encourage everybody to maybe talk to Andrew or the business insurance or whatever it is, because you're going to find out one of two things. One is you already have a great deal and you learn that, or that you can get a better deal, more savings. Either way, you're going to be smarter for that 15 to 20 minutes that you invested in it.
Yeah, seriously, this is kind of a no-lose proposition here. The other obvious thing that occurred to me, Jarrett, is it's pretty cool that you could have a relationship with CAA under one umbrella and get all those things, right? So, because you want to limit to some degree these days your supplier arrangements. So knowing you're with a trusted brand like CAA is pretty cool. We're going to bring up the contact us slide. So before we wrap up, I'm sure there's some people going, okay, I'm going to take Jarrett's advice, no lose proposition. Here's what you can do. So contact CAA Business, and it's business, very easy, at CAA eo.ca, and there's a phone number for you. For everyone who registered for today, by the way, you're going to get the slides and the contact information for both Jarrett and Andrew. Well, gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you, Jarrett. Really appreciate CAA speaking to our audience on this. Excellent job, as always.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
And thank you to Andrew as well. We'll see you guys really soon. Before we sign off, a reminder that you can visit obj.ca website every day for the latest in local business news. In fact, we just redesigned the entire website. Go check it out. This is all part of OBJ's 30th anniversary, by the way. We've transitioned from tabloid newspaper to a premium glossy magazine. We've got a redesigned website, and coming up soon, a mobile app for our readers. Also recommend you subscribe to OBJ Today, which is our Monday to Friday email newsletter. You're wondering, why do I need another email in my inbox? Listen, this one's a time saver. You can scan it for daily local headlines. It helps you make smart business decisions and keeps you informed so you can talk to Jarrett at the next cocktail party. If you're on social media, please follow us on LinkedIn. We're getting close to, I think, 45,000 followers. And if you're on YouTube right now, do us a favor, click like, the red subscribe button, and the little bell icon. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you real soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Cheers.